Welcome to another episode of the Coaches and Content Podcast, where we teach you how to get clients through creating content. I'm your host, Zach Scholl.
Yeah,
and today we got another great guest by the name of Phil Duke Jr. Phil, how are we doing today?
Man, I'm doing good. I love that intro. I love the Nature Boy Ric Flair. We might have to talk some wrestling at the end. So,
well, guys, let's make some noise for Phil being a guest on here today. Give him a couple Ric Flairs. So, guys, today, Phil, you're in Alabama, right?
Yeah, I'm in West Central Alabama. Northport, Alabama is where I live. Most people don't know where that is. Tuscaloosa, Alabama is where the University of Alabama is. Most people know us because we're pretty good in college football right now, even though we weren't for a long time. And Northport is on the other side of the river. So there's a river that runs through town, and one side is Tuscaloosa, one side is Northport. And my office that I'm in right now and where I live is on the Northport side of the river. Yeah. So small town comparatively, but we like it. It's a big, small town.
What do you guys say down there? Roll Tide? Isn't that your thing?
Yeah, Roll Tide is the big thing down here. Yeah, and if you live in Alabama, you've got to pick. You're either an Alabama fan or you're an Auburn fan. You cannot be neutral. So you grow up, you've got to make a decision at a young age. And if you move here, you can't be neutral either. You got to pick a side. So.
All right, I'm Roll Tide. I'm on Alabama side, so we're good.
That's good, man.
So guys, before we get into things, first let's talk about what we're going to talk about today is, when I meet with someone who understands the power of creating content, it's always a good thing. They understand how powerful it is and how to use it. So what we're going to talk about today is how to use content for recruiting and growing franchises and networking and things like that, because that's what Phil is using his content for. He owns a franchise, part of a company called First Class Real Estate, and they're nationwide, right? They have brokerages across the country.
Yeah, we're about 83 or 84 locations as of right now. Yeah.
So what makes like First Class stand out, or it's kind of like a Remax or a Keller Williams, right? Like what makes it special? What makes it stand out?
Yeah, I think they all have their place depending on, what kind of agent you are and what you're looking to do. But I think the hardest part of running a team or running a brokerage is not the actual selling houses. Like that's fairly easy to learn how to sell houses. But the admin side of your organization, the people that are going to be onboarding your agents and doing marketing for your agents and closing coordinators and accounting and bookkeeping. What we did early on was we realized that was a huge stumbling block to a lot of people. They either hire too many people or they hire not enough people. And then, they struggle to replace people as they leave. And so what we did was we created a resource center up in Virginia Beach at our headquarters. And that resource center holds all the admin staff that you would ever need to run a location. So like my office here in Northport, Alabama, I've got one manager who runs the office, but we've got a team of closing coordinators who work remotely. They are employees of First Class. We've got accounting and bookkeeping. So they do all our agent billing and onboarding and paying out commissions when agents have a sale and doing our profit and loss statements every month. And we've got a marketing team. We've got a listing input team. So everything that you would really need to run a real estate organization to compete against the big dogs in the industry, you could do it from day one without having to go through the growing pains and spending money and spending time training an admin staff. It's just a plug and play. And so I think that's pretty unique about it. There will probably be others that eventually go that route. But when I saw it, it was very unique. And that was a big hurdle that I had when I was an independent broker was just, man, I want to provide these things to my agents, but it's just going to cost me a fortune. And so do I pay the money and hope that it turns into having more agents, or hop in with something like First Class that's already set up and you just pay as you go essentially. And the more agents you have, the more closings you have, the more you're going to get billed month to month. But it's a safe, scalable way to grow a business. So it's a pretty unique system.
Well, it makes sense why it's called First Class Real Estate, because that sounds very first class. You guys are offering a lot, services, tools, things to help agents. So it makes sense. So guys, to learn more about that, you can go to firstclassrealestate.com. So it's number one, stclassrealestate.com. I'll have the links in the descriptions. You should also check out Phil's personal Facebook page, because before we get into content creation and stuff, Phil Phil gets it. He posts some inspirational stuff, funny stuff, stuff about his family. You're really posting how you should be posting. So check out Phil on Facebook. Just search for Phil Duke. And then you also have your YouTube page, which I was checking out, Phil Duke Jr., which I want to talk about too, because I love the mortgage and movies concept, which is a good idea of creating content about that. But before we get into that, so guys, I'm a huge wrestling fan, and I just found out that Phil's a huge wrestling fan. So unfortunately, we're going to have to talk a little wrestling. But I'm trying to put a spin on it because I know I personally learned a lot about things from watching wrestling, marketing, videos, stories, all that stuff. So I'm curious, do you feel the same as far as you think you've learned a lot about marketing and psychology from watching wrestling and being a wrestling fan?
Yeah, I think so, man. I mean, as I've gotten a little bit older, I've gotten more into like the behind the scenes of the decisions they've made as far as character development and sticking with somebody versus not sticking with somebody. I was, you are too. We're about the same age. I think we're like a year apart, but we both grew up when wrestling was good, when everybody couldn't wait till Monday night because you could just go back and forth between WWF and WCW. And if you go back and you watch the WCW documentary, like they made a lot of bad decisions, and that's why they're not around anymore. And, but they did win in the ratings for a long time, but at what cost, And so yeah, I would say definitely so. I think, there's got to be good guys. There's got to be bad guys. I think that's somewhat important in how you brand yourself. Who are you? Who's your character? What is your avatar? How do you stand out? Like in the real estate space, most people just look at real estate agents, and I would agree with this as well. They just look at us and think we're all the same. We can all basically do the same thing, which is kind of true. But how do you get yourself to stand out? How do you get yourself noticed? And I do think that's something that I thought a lot about. And I think, I never really put it together maybe until today. But yeah, maybe my wrestling background was a big part of that. So.
Oh yeah! Give me a couple Ric Flairs.
Woo!
Yeah, I mean, wrestling is it's marketing, it's storytelling, and it's branding. You made a good point about that. Every guy has their own gimmick, and you have to have a way to stand out. So I'm curious, before you started making content and stuff, how did you make your name as a real estate agent? How did you brand yourself, or how did you set yourself apart from other agents?
Yeah, well, some of it was a little bit of luck. I think you try things as well until you find some stuff that sticks. And I think, early on, I got in the business originally from 06 to 08, and I got out when the market crashed and joined the Army and went back to school to get my degree and never thought I'd be back in real estate, but I got back in it, as a part-time agent in 2015. And really, had to kind of figure out, hey, there's a lot of people in this business, but there's a lot of people that aren't really doing very well. So, what are the people that are doing well doing? And so I think that helped with it. And then, I just wanted to become known as the guy who was the real estate expert, the local real estate expert, the local real estate celebrity. And so we kind of tried something. It kind of started off as a joke. My last name is Duke and I live in Northport. So we started hashtag Duke of Northport. And some people liked it, and then some people really, really didn't like it. And, maybe my wrestling background a little bit, I always liked the bad guys. I didn't like the good guys very much when I was, growing up. I always liked the bad guys. I thought they were more entertaining. And so I just kind of took that Duke of Northport thing and started running with it. I bought the domain, and I don't think I have it anymore, but because I hadn't produced in a couple of years, but I did it. I put it on billboards. I put it all over Facebook. I even did some like really, really cheesy videos where I was like dressed up with like a crown and a robe, like a king, and
that's pro wrestling right there. That's pro wrestling. Yeah.
Yeah. And, had like a sword and, kind of like knighted a sign, like I now pronounce you sold, and the sold sign would pop. So it was like really, really cheesy, but it was like, you remembered it. People still remember it today. Like I still have people today. They're like, man, that was good. I really like that, So I think that was just something. It just kind of happened. We tried it and kind of just tested to see what the reaction would be, and just kind of, took it from there. And I've always kind of been, and still even today with us growing our real estate company, feel like so many real estate agents out there, um, in the local real estate community, and really nationwide. It's like the people that are doing really well, they almost kind of like look down at the people that aren't doing very well. You know, like I'm better than them, and we live in a nicer neighborhood than them, and our kids go to the private school, and like I've always tried to be like just the normal guy real estate agent too. You know, like we go to public schools. I drive a Nissan Altima and a Ford F-150. Like, I mean, I'm not, you know, living to impress. And so I think some of that too is just like that has trickled down into the culture of my organization here. And I've been attracting people to come work here who are like, yeah, I'm not the person that grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth. And I'm not the person that has the right last name and the right family pedigree. And I can relate to that. So I think it kind of just trickled down, and that's really kind of what we've developed as our culture here at this one location. Each location is a little bit different, but at the location that I own and that I run and that I work out of, that's basically what our culture has turned into. So, yeah.
So you said you were doing all this stuff. You started around 2015, 2016, like making the billboards and the videos and
Mhm.
stuff.
Yep. Yeah. That's got it back into the business late 2015. I ended up transitioning full time to the business in 2016, and then 2017 was the year that everything really started taking off at that point. And it's just kind of gone from there. It went from being just a one agent to one agent with an assistant, to open up my own little small company, and then growing that office to 50 plus agents, and then open up another office in town. And we just opened up our third office in this same, you know, general area. You know, and so it's just continued to grow from there. But yeah, it just started back in 2015. Again, you know, working a good job, had a good 40-hour a week job. But at 29 years old, just kind of felt like I was playing it safe. And I kind of just remembered, you know, the time that I failed in the business, and it was 2006 to 2008 was a very, very tough time to be getting started in real estate. But I just kind of got that itch to work for myself again and have that freedom, and really thought about the things I could have done differently, you know, that first go around that maybe would have gotten me to survive in the business in a time that was pretty tough. And so, you know, it just kind of all started from there. And it's just been a fun couple of years.
So how much, we talk a lot about content creation and how it helps people get clients. And you mentioned attracting people, which I always talk about how content helps you attract people. How much would you attribute your growth from, 2015 to 2017 and going from an agent to owning your own franchise? Like how much of that would you attribute to creating content? Like, were you creating a lot more content? Were you still riding with the Duke stuff?
Yeah, I would say initially it was still when we were a small company, it was still just a lot about me. Like come work over here because I'm a top producing agent and I can coach you and get you to the next level too. As we got bigger and bigger and bigger, it got to a point where, you know, I didn't have a ton of time for one-on-one with every single person that we had. And so then it had to become more about, you know, the content, about what our culture is, what we stand for. And as of today, like content is still a big part of what we do. We use content to recruit people, whether it's finding a business partner to open up a new office with, you know, in another location that we're not currently in, or if it's just recruiting, you know, local real estate agents, whether that's people who are already in the business at another company and getting them to come over to our company, or taking somebody who's not in real estate at all and kind of showing them, here's what it takes to get your license, and this is how we're going to train you, and all that can be put in there. And even internal, I think this is something a lot of people don't think about. I mean, content to me is not just the stuff we create that the public sees, but like we have an entire online course that I created that is specific to Tuscaloosa, Alabama real estate, how to fill out this form and how to explain it to a customer. And in the beginning, we would teach classes. We would do those classes live. And every time we hired somebody, we'd have to schedule 4 classes for them to come in live. And it might be at noon, it might be at 7 p.m., it might be on a lunch break. And it got to where we needed to just take the lessons in those courses that I had already created, put those into content. And now, you know, we've hired 5 agents in the last 2 weeks One of them just came by today and passed her test yesterday afternoon, actually. They can start going through this online course and learning how to sell real estate, at least the basics, without me having to physically teach those classes anymore. So I see content not just as a marketing tool, but it's also a scaling tool to grow your business as well. I think it's a great way to give people like onboarding training. Our online course is about 8.5 hours long. So a really motivated person can knock it out in a day and at least understand, at least be exposed to the general concepts. And then we've got to, hold their hand from there. It's not like they watch the class one time and they're real estate experts, but it at least gets them started, And so I think content has been a huge, huge thing. And, those are things we created years and years ago. We're still using them today. And now we've got other people on our team that are wanting to grow and build their teams and eventually have their own offices with us as well. They're using my same onboarding system to recruit agents to their teams. And they're using those videos to train their agents too. So it's turned into way bigger than what I ever thought it would be. Yeah.
Yeah. We did a couple interviews about like creating and selling your own courses, but I haven't talked to anyone about internal courses and how using content internally for a company, how it really can just leverage so much of your time. Because like you said, before you had to schedule stuff, you had classes, people have family, they have kids, they might have another job. So to be able to just put it all online for them to do it is super smart. And content is a great way it's a great internal and external tool to help grow your business. I'm glad you touched on that.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, because we used to do 4 classes over a 14-day period when an agent would join our company, whether they were brand new to the business or they were coming from another company, And so 14 days to train somebody, number one, like that's not very smart now that I think on it. But that was the way we did it, and it was good. It worked. But we had some people that joined that were like, I want to go through this faster. Like, I don't want to wait 14 days to get trained. I want to get trained this week and start selling houses right away. And so it kind of forced us, and thank goodness it forced us. We were very, very nervous about turning into a totally online thing. We felt like there would be like a disconnect between them. But honestly, like the great thing about it too, is they can go through that onboarding training week 1. And if they have questions, week 4, week 6, week 22, wherever, they know how to go back and find those videos on that one specific topic, because we got them labeled really good and sectioned out into 8 different sections. They can go back through those things and kind of reteach themselves over and over and over without me having to physically do it. So it's a huge, huge game changer. It's also helped me. I think doing that internal kind of stuff has helped me become more comfortable on camera as well. I think I'm more polished when I do create marketing content. I think it's turned into me not having really a fear of clicking that record button and like, holy crap, we're live right now. It's just another thing, it's just become normal for me to talk to this camera sitting right here. So yeah, it's been a game changer on an internal and an external level.
Yeah, so we touched on the internal stuff. I definitely want to talk about external because you have your own podcast, like we were talking before. You have your own YouTube page. You're posting videos as well, and I haven't really talked to anyone yet about how to use content to grow a franchise or recruit people. I guess indirectly I have, because I'm always telling people, you can attract business through creating content, which is similar. If you're selling a service, it's similar to selling a franchise. But so you started your podcast pretty recently, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of started it and stopped it a couple times. I never really was consistent with it until really the last couple months, really since about April of this year. So we've been pretty consistent with it for about four or 5 months now. And when it comes to to finding clients, finding business partners, our approach has always been and still is today. We just want to be somebody's plan B. They're happy where they're at, right? Whatever company they're with, they're happy right now. But if we can just continue to post relevant content in front of people, if we can help them get the word out about their business, I think that's a very valuable thing as well. But so many people think, and I believe this as well. I think what I've got going with First Class right now is the best thing out there. And Of course I do. I'm the owner of it. But if I just start talking about our features and benefits and I start creating content centered around our features and benefits, the people that I'm trying to attract, they actually just start seeing me as a salesperson and not somebody that can provide them value, not somebody that can get them to the next level. So most of our content, almost all of our content is not, there's not even a call to action. There's not even a click here to get more information. It's just, here's some tip that we talked about at our recent sales meeting. So when it comes to recruiting like agents at the local level, we do a Monday morning mastermind meeting with our agents, and we'll normally record a 3 to 5 minute video of just a summary of what we talked about during that meeting. And here's a couple of the big key points we talked about. And again, like everybody else in town is trying to tell them how they've got the best split or the best technology or the best office culture. We're just telling you how to sell more houses. And we're hoping that you watch some of those videos and it helps you, and maybe it helps you get a client here or there. And when you decide to make a move, if you decide to make a move, hopefully you'll remember that I've provided some value to you, and maybe I'll be, you know, that plan B brokerage for you. And so it's the same thing with us, you know, growing the franchise as well. You know, a lot of good business models out there, a lot of really profitable ones out there. What we're doing is not a fit for everybody, and that's okay. But if I can just become the plan B for a lot of people out there, I know that things change. And I know just from them seeing me and hearing me and seeing that email, you know, in their inbox every time a new podcast comes out. And you know, I just know subconsciously I'm becoming their plan B for some of them. And so it's just a slow, steady, consistent kind of way of just constantly being out there in front of them. And that seems to be working for us. I mean, we've almost doubled our business every single year for the last 4 years. So
That's awesome. Yeah. You know, I've done probably over 20 interviews at this point, and the most common thing I keep finding, and it's all entrepreneurs and coaches and business owners like you, the number one thing I keep finding is value. Like that word always comes up multiple times in an interview. And I think when you come from a place of providing value instead of selling, when you just generally try to help people, that's when it comes back to you. And that you're another example of that, because you just said that.
yeah, it's really the same thing. You know, I mean, our little, you know, secrets that we have, you know, that we give to our agents during our sales meetings, like those are the things that we want to put in videos, because if it's helping our agents, it's probably going to help the other agents in our local area too. And, you know, we put that content out there. We run it as a Facebook ad. We actually created a list, you know, with the names, phone numbers, and email addresses of all the local real estate agents. We put that into Facebook Ads Manager as a custom audience. So only those people are seeing it. The general public is not seeing those tips, you know, that we're putting out on a week-to-week basis. But every time those agents log in, I mean, we're spending $5 a day, and we typically recruit 3 to 5 agents a month. I mean, it's a really, really good return. And those videos are playing 24/7, you know, no matter when they're on the Facebook, no matter what their weekend's looking like, you know, every time they're logging into Facebook, they're just, once again, another video from Phil, or an agent testimonial from one of our agents that, you know, took some advice or, you know, that we helped to get to the next level, or whatever the case may be. So it's just a slow and steady race. You know, it's not, I think so many people are used to the call to action type marketing, click here, you know, put your information on a landing page. And not to say that doesn't work. I still do that too. But it seems like you've got to do value, then a call to action. You know, Gary V wrote a really good book about that. Jab, 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 right hook, where you're just giving value, and then you do a call to action. So I think you've got to provide value first for them to see you as a person of value that they would want to get more information from. And then that call to action comes a whole lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could bring value, or you could bring entertainment indirectly and then funnel them into, you know, your real estate stuff. Because I wanted to ask you, I'm sure you're familiar with the big wrestling podcaster Conrad Thompson. You know, of him. He's from Alabama too, I think.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he actually used to be on a sports radio show here in Birmingham, Alabama, about an hour from me.
Yeah, so for people that don't know, Conrad Thompson is like the biggest podcaster in wrestling. He has like 5 or 6 podcasts, a lot of legends, but he also does mortgages, and he's super successful with mortgages. And what he does is he'll promote his mortgage stuff on his podcast, but he still has his wrestling podcast. So like he's not directly selling his mortgage stuff to you, but he'll advertise his own stuff on his show, which is super smart. And that's kind of what you're talking about too, is you providing value or entertainment, but you can also still, you know, not sneak in, but you could still promote your other stuff as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. It makes perfect sense. I mean, if you're providing value and they're getting a lot out of it, they're going to want more, you know. The people that I've had as coaches in the past, and I still have a couple real estate coaches. I have a marketing coach that helps me with all my content and everything. It all started from seeing something they put out there for free, some kind of a free webinar, or I heard them on a podcast, or I saw them speak at a conference. I read their book. It all started with some value, and I was like, man, I want to get more, or I've got a question. I liked what they put out, but I'm not exactly sure how to implement it. And so, yeah, I think it just makes perfect sense to sprinkle that stuff in there. That's really, I think, how most people are selling today. It's all value first, and then sell later. So,
yeah, and I think I mentioned all that to bring it back to your podcast and your YouTube page. So I'm looking at it now. You know, you have there's a real estate leadership roundtable podcast where, you know, it's the same idea what we're talking about. I'm sure you're not really talking about first class real estate, but you're talking about real estate in general and you're educating people. And then, you know, if they go to your website or if they talk to you about business, that's great, but that's not your intention, right? You're kind of just trying to help people.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, like that podcast too, it's also self-development for me. Like I'm interviewing people that I genuinely like want to hear how they're doing things, you know. Some people use podcasts to generate leads. Was talking to a guy the other day that grew his company just by identifying people that would be good customers of his company. And he just asked them to come on his podcast. And, you know, again, you know, kind of stroked their ego a little bit, you know, built them up and published that podcast. And then a week or two later would start, you know, trying to sell his services to those guests that he had just had on his podcast. So there's all kind of ways that you can do that too. I know people that have one of my coaches, Joshua Smith, has probably the best real estate podcast out there, GSD Mode.
Yeah.
Really, really good podcast. And he's got business relationships and business partnerships that have been created just from having people on the podcast. And, you know, he's, you know, gotten a little chunk of the pie here and a little chunk of the pie here. And, you know, I think all those things can happen from people that are just willing to be consistent with this content. That's the hardest part of it. We all know we need to be doing it. We all know it works, but being consistent with it's really the hardest part, I think, for most people.
Yeah. So with Josh, did you listen to his stuff and then hire him to become your coach, or how did it come about?
Yeah. So actually, as I was getting ready to get back in the business in 2015, I knew from the first go around that there were real estate coaches out there and had been exposed to some of that before. And I really just felt like, you know, hey, it's been 8 years since I was last in the business. Let's start like figuring out, you know, who's out there and who might have some new ideas. And I just found him on YouTube initially. He did a video about a for sale by owner script that he was using that was getting him and the agents on his team appointments. And then it just kind of, I was like, man, I like that. That's a good idea. And then I just started listening to more and more. And then I found out he had a podcast, started listening to the podcast. And then he came out with a 90-day boot camp coaching program where, you know, every week for 90 days, he did a coaching call on a specific subject. And then if you wanted to stay in the group after that, you could pay a little bit of money to stay in a private Facebook group and have access to him and ask questions directly to him. I just got a lot of value from his podcast and from his free YouTube videos that were out there that I was like, man, he's putting out this much good stuff for free. What's it going to be like when I'm actually paying him as a coach? And like, that's how we sell today, right? I mean, he did such a good job of putting out value with, again, I didn't have to click anything. I didn't have to sign up for anything. It was just free content out there that he'd probably done years and years and years before. And that content was still working and it was still relevant. And it caused me to want more and more and more and more of what he was putting out there. And so, you know, I'm still a coaching client of his today. I'm still in his coaching program today. I'm not as involved as I once was because it's a lot more agent specific and people that are out there producing every day. But I still stay up on it because I want to be relevant and know, what I can do to help my agents out and what's working for other people across the country in today's market. So yeah, that's how I became a client with him.
Just another example there. What this podcast is all about is helping, it's called Coaches and Content, but it's really entrepreneurs, business owners, but it's helping people get clients through creating content. So this has been an awesome interview, Phil. I really appreciate you doing it. So as we wrap it up here, I always like to leave it off with trying to give advice to other entrepreneurs. And I think, we've been talking about so much about value. I guess a good question to leave it off with is, because I love how you just mentioned how much free value you got. You're like, wow, if I'm getting this much value for free, what am I going to get if I pay for it? And I agree with that as well. I've hired people and stuff because I've the same thing. So I'm curious, how do you provide so much value that people want to give you money to hire you?
Well, I think you've got to do a lot of it. I think it's got to be something consistent. If he just had one video out there, I don't know that one video enough would have been enough for me to just, give him my credit card info and sign up for his course. But it was like multi-channel. It was not just on YouTube. It was also in podcasts. He also was doing like free webinars, like 2 or 3 hour long webinars to show you, how to get 40 to 50 people to come to your open houses. I think that was one of the first ones I ever hopped on. So it was like multi-channel. It wasn't just, a one trick pony. He had multiple things out there. So I would say with your content, you've got to have ways to leverage yourself. And the way you do that's by creating the content, putting it out there, letting it live out there forever. I think today it's probably a little bit harder to put that kind of content out there because of the tags that you've got to put on YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. But, there's ways to learn how to do that. There's people that can do that kind of stuff for you. I think just trying to put out good content, but more important, I think just putting out regular content. You don't have to hit a bunch of home runs. Not every video you do is going to end up on your greatest hits album. So I think it's just, base hit after base hit after base hit. Your imperfect video that gets posted is better than the perfect video that never gets posted. And so at some point you got to figure out, like, where am I going to land on this? How good am I going to make this video look? How good am I going to make it sound? Am I going to put a bunch of graphics on it? Some of the most successful content creators I know, they just pull their phone out. They just do it right there. Just, no editing, anything. They just record it real quick and throw it up there. And it's just the, over and over and over. It's just the constant content, constantly staying in front of people, and not just staying in front of people, staying in front of the right people. So having videos that would actually provide value to the people that you're wanting to become clients, I think is something that really, really goes a long way as well.
Man, that was awesome, guys. You got to give it up for that. So yeah, Phil, as we wrap it up here, I would love to just give you a chance to kind of tell people where they can find you, your podcast, First Class Real Estate. Now's the time to kind of promote whatever you got going on.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on here. Like you said already, Facebook is an easy place to find me. I do have the real estate franchise model where we're constantly looking for business partners. Anybody that has questions about any of that, would like to see that model, can go to phildukejr.com, and there's just a simple link there where you can book a time on my calendar to do a video chat. Real Estate Leadership Roundtable podcast is out there. I'm also looking for guests to be on there as well. Any entrepreneur, anybody that's had success, love to chat about business, learn from other entrepreneurs. It's a big self-development thing for me as well, just learning from people that are on my podcast. And then, in addition to growing the real estate thing, on a nationwide level, I also own a title company and run a mortgage company as well. So even if you're not interested in doing the real estate thing, would love to chat with you about doing a mortgage company or a title company together.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you coming on. And just a quick reminder, guys, that Coaches and Content podcast, we do one episode, sometimes 2 episodes a week, usually one interview, one educational episode. It's on YouTube, all podcast platforms. Make sure you like and subscribe and all that. And also, if you want your own podcast, reach out to me today. That's what we do. We produce content for people coaches, personal brands for fun, whatever. With that being said, Phil, I really appreciate you coming on. And guys, come back next week. We'll have another great episode, another great guest.
Thanks for having me, man.
Give you a couple more Ric Flairs, a couple Macho Mans.
The Nature Boy.
All right, guys, we'll be back next week. Thanks for watching and listening.